Our ideology is superior for every single demographic. Everyone. You don't have to change what you believe. All you have to do is be able to articulate to these disparate groups why what you believe is good for them. Just like real quick, young people, do you like having fun? Do you like joking? Well, the Democratic Party will ruin you if you ever tell a joke that's a little off color. Do you want to? Bernie Sanders sounds good, right? He won't have to pay for his socialism. He'll be long gone. You know who's going to pay for it? Young people. You could do the same with Hispanics, who are traditionally a masculine culture with huge conservative values. They don't like getting pandered to with this Latinx stuff. You could do the same with black people in the inner city. They care about law and order. The ones that are hardworking, that are trying to, afraid that their communities are rife with crime. They want law and order. You could do the same with people, as James was talking, with a criminal background. Steve Bannon, who was just maliciously for a political prosecution thrown in jail, said as he's there talking to the people that are in jail with him over and over and over again, when they hear him out, they're like, absolutely, we would vote for Trump and vote for Republicans. So the key isn't to change who you are. The key is to be able to take your message and articulate in as many venues and as many spaces and as many areas as possible as to why our values are superior. That's why I'm not going to leave Twitch. That's why I'm not going to leave TikTok. I'm not going to leave these left-wing spaces. I'm going to be there, even if it looks like I'm swamped, even if it looks like when I debate these left-wing people, their audience outnumbers mine 100 to 1. I don't care. I know I'm right. I know I'm doing well. And eventually you're going to start to see the fruits of those labor.
Well, okay, Rob, I got a question for you. Sorry.
Listen, what's up, Andrew?
Hey, what's up, Rob? How you doing?
Good.
But there's maybe a couple of refutations here, right? So I guess maybe it's going to be Andrew versus Rob debate right here for a second. So I understand the idea of the mass big tent pandering to bolster the Republican base, but there's also undesirables that we don't want in the Republican Party base, right? Who contradict the values, which the main base, I would say, for Republicans is Christian. It's a Christian base. Mm-hmm. And so how do you pander to that base if you're also pandering to like homosexuals, LGBTQ, transgender people, things like, how do you actually accommodate those two things?
So you're a Christian populist, correct?
Yeah, Christian populist, correct.
So you would be against such as like gay marriage. That would be fair to say?
Very fair to say, yes.
Okay, but you wouldn't be throwing everybody who's gay in prison, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so then let's say we don't want undesirables. I disagree with that completely. I think we want everyone voting for Republicans. What I would say is there are a tremendous amount of gay people who would be willing to say, although I think I should have the right to marry, you know what I'm more concerned about than that? Affording groceries. Me not being a victim of crime every day I walk down the street, not entering into World War III, having a government that cares more about my basic needs than sending our tax dollars overseas to entrench us in these foreign wars that are never ending. You don't.
But how do you reconcile that then with the woman's vote? Because, for instance, women are primarily voting for Kamala Harris based on the fact that she's going to allow them to abort their children. And that is hang on, real quick. That's the primary reason that they're doing it. It's a pure emotional appeal to a single social issue. So if you tell the entire kind of field of LGBTQ, okay, no, we don't want gay marriage, and we want to roll gay marriage back, in fact, the same thing that happened with abortion rights becomes a single issue, and they're definitely going to rally against it. I don't think that just telling the women, well, you can't have an abortion, but your groceries will be cheaper. I don't think that that's a working message, man.
Two things to say to it. One, you have to be pragmatic. Just like the libertarians that I'm talking to are like, oh, we need zero government whatsoever, therefore we'll cut off our nose to spite our face by not voting to ensure that Democrats that are authoritarian, huge government people will win in perpetuity throughout. So I think that you have to be pragmatic, such as the abortion issue. In a state like Pennsylvania, it's not going to be popular to say zero abortions ever. Even if that's something you truly want, you have to incrementally move there by changing the culture before you're able to change the politics. So Donald Trump has the right perspective on that issue when it comes to a place like Pennsylvania, where he says we'll leave the states decide. The same would be true of gay marriage, right? You have to be pragmatic in the moment. And then the way you win is that you are pragmatic and win elections and win political power. And then you move the culture, which allows you to move the political power. So I would say it would be a huge mistake, for example, to look at women and say, well, because there's a large portion of you that are single issue voters that are voting on abortion, and Democrats will always be preferable to Republicans when it comes to abortion, therefore we should just not address that group. That's a huge mistake. It's a guaranteed loss. Instead, what you do is win the argument that why abortion is bad, or if you can't win that argument, you argue the Republicans are good enough, the way they're running on abortion right now, that you should care about these other issues as bigger priorities, such as your ability to provide for your family, to be able to buy groceries. But you need to start winning those cultural issues. The reason Republicans are getting shellacked on abortion is because they've allowed the Democrats to craft the narrative and haven't articulated just how bad the Democrats are with their disgusting allowing abortions up until the third trimester policies.
Yeah, but Rob, when the Republican Party panders to LGBTQ, the Republican Party seems to become LGBTQ. They don't seem to move the goalposts. They don't seem to be moving incrementally towards anything except becoming the same Democrats of 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 years ago. I don't ever see them. Hang on, real quick. Let me just respond, and then you guys can jump in. I don't actually see them incrementally making these changes by pandering to big tent Republicanism. Rather, I see the groups that they move into Republicanism change the party itself. So the party itself changes, not the issues that the party wants changed. And that's the big problem that I see. Take, for instance, you bring up abortion issues, right? You say, well, wait a second. We have to pander by rolling this back. But wait, we had an amazing victory, right? We didn't have to roll anything back, right? We rolled it back to then pander to abortionists, which is insane. So I think it is true, and I think ultimately that I think that Trump tapped into the idea of the single working man home and bringing back Americana, and it was that promise of the steel factory jobs back here again, the good trade jobs back here again, the ability to support an entire family and have a new car every year, the idea of Americana. It was a rollback to that. That's what made him a populist and made him so popular, not inclusivity to every insane, deranged group which exists. And so I have a different philosophy here.
I think you
just
counter
quickly,
your
guys,
own. Oh, sorry,
Rob. Before you jump in, I'd like to, because I know JP and James look like they've got something to say on this. So JP, we'll go to you then, James, and then we can continue the back and forth.
Yeah, sure. I love to jump in. I am a social conservative as well as many Americans, but we need to distinguish between a philosophy of winning and a philosophy of governance. If you want to influence your philosophy of governance, move here to DC and say what you just say in a congressional office. Try to influence lawmaking. But reality is that we're not going to win an election if we make abortion and gay marriage a central issue. And the reason why I say this, it's not just about like the polls. With gay marriage more than abortion, like it's very clear most Americans like gay marriage. And if you run on opposing gay marriage, you're going to lose a very big segment of the population. Not a smart thing to do. But with abortion, the case is a little different. We know that with abortion, it's still, somewhat 50-50, depending on, each state and everything. But broadly speaking, there is still a very healthy, big pro-life movement. But the reason why Donald Trump moderated on abortion is because he had to deprioritize the issue. Because if the election was mainly about abortion and immigration, then he loses. If he manages to lower the interest, people like the fears people have about abortion in regard to him, then the election would be mainly an election on immigration, economics, and all these other issues that are top priorities and Trump overperforms in. That's a solid case. You cannot refute that. I
can not only refute it, but I'm about to in a second.
Okay, I want to know, like, make the case to me that not moderating on abortion is a strategically viable choice in this election. Looking at 2022 and what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, so make the case. So when you bring up things like you say, okay, if you were to make LGBTQ marriage a priority, you're going to lose. Well, here's the thing. When I look at the state referendums which happened, the state votes against gay marriage, like in California, it was voted down. When it was left up to the people, it was voted down.
When?
Okay.
25 years ago.
No, well, hang on. What happened is like what often happens. These things are ruled by the Supreme Court. The people have no say whatsoever. And so the debate becomes closed. If you open that debate back up, you'll see these polls massively shift if it becomes an actual issue, something which you can actually move towards, just like we saw with abortion. Thought that was case closed.
Who won on this?
Now there became, hang on, man. Let me make my point, and then you can respond. I think that what happens is when you close the case down, you say, okay, the case is closed. It's now federally protected. There's no more debate. Everyone's just going to pander to this group. Then when you make these polls, right, and you craft what people think, they're already kind of stuck in well, it's an inevitability. This is already the way things are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas if you were to say, no, this is nonsense, we're not going to put up with it at all, I think you would see those polls shift as there was a national debate. In fact, Rob's making the case for it right now. He says, look, you need to have a national debate on this, on all of these different issues. You need to be able to win these arguments. You need to be able to go where these people are. You need to be able to denounce their ideology, right? We're not even doing that with the issues that we care about. I think that if you had real right-wing politicians who ran on these things, they would win. And I think you're following hook, line, and sinker for a Democrat narrative that you can't do that because it's a loser. Well, let's try it. What do you got to lose?
Yeah, cool. What's stopping you from trying it? You already disproved your own. You already disproved your own theory. You gave the reasons why you think Trump was successful, and you said because he had this populist America First message. Donald Trump, for example, is not super right wing and conservative on gay marriage, nor is he super right wing or conservative on abortion, and yet he still won. Now, juxtapose that to people like DeSantis, people that say actually we have this sort of purity. Let me finish. Let me finish. So you had this purity test from people like DeSantis, people, not all of them, but many of them that'll say something to the effect of like, well, Trump's not conservative enough. Trump's not staunchly pro-choice or pro-life enough. Trump's not against gay marriage enough. Right, but what Trump saw by getting the political victory was he was able to install judges that actually got the biggest pro-life victory probably in the last 80 years in this country by getting Roe v. Wade overturned. The truth was that if he ran specifically on the issues you're talking about, he wouldn't have achieved the popularity that led to him winning in the first place. And the idea that it's like, well, he needs to forgo all that and instead he should self-sabotage. The fact that we're even having this conversation the day before this election that's going to be clipped and sought to alienate women, LGBT people, etc., that will need to get these victories to get people across the finish line is a huge mistake. Instead, what you do is articulate why you want them to vote for you, but you don't change what your position is. And if you're staunchly someone who's against gay marriage, fine, you argue for that. No one's preventing you from running. No one's preventing from politicians that want to make these arguments from running. They don't win. That's the problem. You say, well, the Supreme Court weighed in on this. I agree, the Supreme Court decision was terrible. And yet, who stopped you from talking? Right? Lindsey Graham, for example, came out in an effort to sabotage Republicans on the eve of the last election by saying, well, we're going to have a national abortion ban. How did that work? Well, Republicans took losses. Almost every state where there were more staunch abortion plans, they took losses, and they're going to continue so for the foreseeable future. So the idea that we should self-sabotage by saying, Mr. Trump, even though you won on this populist message, why don't you forgo that and instead be a Christian nationalist that says, actually, now we're going to relitigate gay marriage. We shouldn't have gay marriage. Actually, we're going to say all abortion should be illegal. Congratulations in losing 48 out of 50 states. Now we're on the precipice of World War III. We're allowing more unfettered immigration to people that will reliably vote Democrat. We're allowing more censorship through disinformation panels that will be used to censor the First Amendment that'll go after channels like this and yours, Andrew. How is that going to be some victory for us? The best chance to get last sentence. The best
and then
chance
guys, after this last sentence, I'm going to bring James in, and then we're going to introduce Utensil as well. We'll get right back to the debate after that.
Okay. The best chance you have to getting the policies that you want is to win the cultural narrative, but in the meantime, to vote for the people that are far better for those policies, even if they're not as close to what you want as you want.
Okay,
yeah,
so quickly, guys, we've got,
okay.
just quickly, Andrew, I'm just going to quickly introduce, we've got a We've thrown an aristocratic utensil into the mix here. We're going to introduce you in just a sec, Spoon. But James, I can see that you have been patiently waiting to jump in on this. I'd like to get your take, and then we can go back to Andrew after that.
Yeah, Rob, I think you're absolutely right. Let's just zoom out for a second. Donald Trump gave us the biggest pro-life victory in the history of this country by appointing Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett to the United States. We will forever, as a movement, be grateful to him. As a Christian, I will forever be grateful for Donald Trump doing that. Let's also not forget Texas. Prior to Roe v. Wade being overturned, Texas was doing, Rob, you know this, 4,500 abortions, 45 babies being murdered every single month. Now that's down to 5. I'm okay with us having a debate about how far we want to go with abortion. Let's have this debate after we win later this week. I don't want this debate to be clipped up, to your point, Rob, and to be spread and to be used as some sort of disinformation campaign. Let's look at the big picture. We need to have a victory. The victory on abortion has been absolutely massive, but let's weight it against the fact that if we double down on this, we are going to lose tomorrow in a way that's going to surrender our ability to secure the border, to make the economy grow again, to actually deliver for Americans from all walks of life. And Andrew, great to see you. I know we were on Jubilee together, and I would just say to the point about gay Americans, I don't see having an event for log cabin Republicans or having a gay or an LGBT speaker as necessarily pandering. President Trump and Senator Vance have been crystal clear on the issue of transgenderism. There's absolutely no reason a minor should be having any sort of puberty blockers, hormones, or these types of sex change surgery. So I view them as completely on the same page where we need to be, is to reject transgenderism. I welcome any gay or trans American voting for President Trump tomorrow, but that's kind of where we are today, and I hope that we do win, and I hope we'll come back and have a debate about how we can bring a little bit more focus into some of the issues that we all might care about.
Okay, great. So let me just respond to this, and then I'm only able to be here for about 15 minutes because I have to run some errands this morning. So I just popped on the panel. But let me respond to what you just said. One, the fact that you don't think that having gay speakers and gay infiltrators all over the Republican Party isn't a problem is exactly why it's not a reflection of Christian ethics anymore, right? Because you will say the ends justify the means, and the ends do not justify the means. Ultimately, it is absolutely fine for us to have standards against a 2 percentile group. When you say, okay, we're going to draw the line at transgender children. Oh, wow. Oh, thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to stop one monstrous act, which, by the way, stemmed from LGBTQ advocacy to begin with. And what's going on is, no, I do think Americans are hungry for some type of traditionalism. When we see who's leaving which churches and moving into which churches, we can see that that is the case. And what happens instead is you dance with the devil, and the devil doesn't change. The devil changes you. When you dance with these people, they infiltrate your party. And what are you even fighting for? You're just Democrats from 10 years ago. Because you got the abortion ban and then immediately rolled it back to the states when we could have pushed for a federal ban. Yeah, it would not have been popular. Yeah, we might have taken some short-term losses, but we could have done it. We could have pushed for it, and we didn't do it. We didn't. Instead, he cucked out and he rolled it back to the states. He shouldn't have done that. It was a big mistake, and you're going to pay a penalty for this. Ultimately, you say, well, it decreases it. It's like, yeah, it does decrease it. I agree with that. Great. We could have pushed for the ban altogether. That would have been even better. And I don't see us going back and revisiting these issues, right? All I see is that you just say, well, it's settled, and you move on. And it's like, that's not in conformity with Christian ethics. And so Republicans are just going to continue to decrease in the party because you're not addressing issues that the Christian base cares about. In other words, you're creating a base which is conflicted with itself. And I think that that's a huge mistake.
Understatement of the year talking about short-term losses. Right. Short-term loss as in getting shellacked in almost every state. You still haven't addressed how that would lead to perpetual even more losses than what you're talking about based on what these short-term losses would mean.
Well, I'm just asking, what do we win?
Well,
I'm just asking what we win if all we do is delay it for 15 years. We're not winning anything.
how about we win this, that my family could afford groceries, that we're not in World War III, that people like me and you could be online talking about issues as opposed to being censored by a radical government that seeks to censor anything that's against them or antithetical to them as disinformation. Like the truth is, you
That's
don't
not going
even
to change under Trump. It didn't change the first time.
so-
We were getting
so
banned all
except-
over YouTube under Trump the first time.
right, because the people that were against him, I agree, Trump could have had more
You got
successes,
banned
but
on
it wasn't
Twitch
him.
like 4 times, bro.
please, right? Like it wasn't Trump's people that were doing it though. And yes, I agree he could have done more, and hopefully he will do more now that he has brought people that understand it more, like Elon Musk on. But I don't even think as a Christian that you live your life in the way that you're suggesting that Donald Trump should or politicians should. For example, I know for a fact that you correctly pointed out how dangerous this ideology of transgenderism would become, and you talked about the need to accept allies from all walks of life to fight against this great evil. And you on
Not
your
gays.
show are
Not gays.
so you're telling me that if a prominent gay person was willing to work with you on your platform, then it would have, and you knew that it would have a substantial impact in destroying transgender ideology, particularly in the indoctrination of children, you would not work with that person on your channel.
No, in fact, like Palumbo was one such person, and instead of kowtowing to him, I completely wrecked his ideology too, because it's stupid. You can't kowtow to the people who created the problem. You can't go to the gays and be like, hey, gays who made the problem of transgenderism to begin with and protected them with your massive lobbying group, can you please come in and help us solve this problem? We'll be right back to square one. It's a stupid strategy, and ultimately it'll bite you in the ass, bro.
Your argument is ensures perpetual losses, right? And the same argument could then be drawn out to anything. Well, why would we bring someone with a more libertarian bent on? Because if we do, we'll end up pandering to them, and that would mean that, and so you'll end up with the small tent party that you're seeking that will have perpetual losses, and then all of the horrible things that we've seen grown out as a result of sort of the inability for traditional Republicans to broaden, to actually make their message to a broad base and have these political wins will continue in perpetuity. So I just think that it's a huge mistake
to be Democrats. They're just going to have
huge
political wins to become Democrats.
Who are you voting for, Andrew? Who are you voting for, Andrew? Who are you voting
for? Trump.
Okay, but why? Why? Didn't you just pander to the Democrats? He's just a Democrat, right?
Because listen,
woman is a psychopath.
So you're saying that because I can't look at this from a bird's eye view, right? Look at this from a strategic standpoint. That because I'll individually vote for the lesser of two evils, it's same as you're doing, the same as everybody else is doing, essentially, right? That means that I can't look at the overarching strategy and then apply logic and reason to the strategy and understand that for every one step forward here, we're taking 3 steps back if we become the very thing that we're fighting against, and that's what's happening. That Jubilee episode, for instance, Rob, there was a gay Mohawk dude with heels on, red, white, and blue heels on, who skirted his gate over to sit down in a chair and screech like a banshee at another gay meth job, lunatic, right? These guys, and this guy's representing the Republican Party. Out of your mind. Out of your mind. No way. No way.
We're gonna get JP in, and James, if you guys want to throw a shot, Andrew's got his guard down at the moment, guys. So if you want to punch him in the face, this is a great opportunity. Start with you, JP.
Yeah, like really quickly, I think you have a fundamental misunderstanding of American campaign politics. When you look at the left, do you think the left ran on abortion on demand? Do you think the left ran on abortion the way we see it today in different states? No, they were very methodical. They ran on rare, legal, and so on. I don't remember the 3 words that Hillary used to use. Does anyone remember? Safe, legal,
Safe,
and
legal,
rare.
and rare.
Legal.
Yeah, right. They ran on that, and then what did they do when they got into power? They didn't do it safe, legal, and rare. They did it on demand. They did it however they wanted it to do. Because the reality is that winning matters much more than running and raising your fist if you're not going to have the control.
Just quickly, guys, just before we get back to Andrew, I think the question I want to know, especially from the 3 of you guys who disagree with Andrew, is what is actually the limit? What's the limit in terms of the level of degeneracy that you would be willing to see on the Republican stage if it moved the cause forward?
Well, I don't even know what.
Perfect with my response, real quick, and it's very quick. I'll just make it real quick because I got to go. Okay, so if you don't mind, Jay, let me just make the response real quick to him. This would be all well and good if you said to me, hey, listen, Andrew, we have a Machiavellian style policy here where what we're going to do is we're going to seize power under false pretenses like Democrats do in order to enforce an actual more right-wing conservative agenda. Sure.
Right.
Andrew would be all over that and say, great idea. That's fantastic. That is not what's happening. What happens is that Republicans pander to the constituency base that is anti-Republican and conservative.
So are you? You're voting for them.
Hang on. It's anti-conservative in their agenda. And so what ends up happening is when they get power, they just pander to that particular group so that they'll vote for them next year. In other words, the Democrats are not just infiltrating the government by lying, and then when they get in enforcing their propaganda, they infiltrate the Republican Party too by making them Democrats from 10 years ago. These people are not moving the goalposts. So the thing is, and nobody's demanding that they do it because you're saying, well, all that matters is power. Yeah, okay, great. I agree. We need power, but power to do what?
Yeah.
Well, I will say, I hope we could get a real conservative on to make this argument instead of someone like you that's willing to pander to those communities by voting for Donald Trump, as you've outlined in a tremendous case, is how he's just a Democrat
Rob,
from
I'll
20
stay
years
at home.
ago.
I don't want to be a hypocrite.
Right. So the argument is you understand the argument for pragmatic victories when it comes to your own personal vote, but you demand that we should shoot ourselves in the foot by closing off the party to any ideology that you don't like
I don't have
for
control
perpetuity
over
for
the party,
future.
Rob.
That's right.
I have very little personal political power, and so
exactly,
I have to
exactly.
Fellas.
Yeah.
Last word quickly, James, before Andrew heads off. Did you have anything to add to this?
I would say what Gianfranco posted in the chat. Let's not let perfect be the enemy of good. Let's also not assume that the gay Americans are this homogenized group that are not. A large portion of them that I've met, and you know this, Rob, are against the sort of gender-affirming so-called surgeries that are sterilizing children and turning them to lifelong pharmaceutical patients. So, Andrew, I think we have to be just respectful.
Came from the gay lobby. Came from the gay lobby, bro. All of that came from the protectionists of the gay lobby.
But Andrew, if you polled gay Americans today and asked them if they support trans surgeries for kids, it would not be homogenous. You agree with that, right?
Wait.
Yeah, but that's every group with everything.
Wait, can I jump in?
How is them getting? But how is them getting?
Everything.
How is them getting? How is us getting them to vote for us somehow?
You're not getting them to vote for you. You're not getting the blacks to vote for you. You're not getting to get the gays en masse to vote for you. It's insane. It's not happening. It's not happening.
Well, look at the exit polls tomorrow. We'll know the truth, Andrew. African
Okay, well,
Americans
why don't we just look at
the
last election? What was the African American turnout?
But listen, look at inflation. Look at the open border. That drives African Americans to turn out for Donald Trump. And so let's agree to disagree.
This is wishful thinking, bro. This is wishful
thinking. But Andrew, we're going to know the answer tomorrow.
What do you think the black turnout's going to be? What do you think it's going to be?
You want me to answer? I'll answer.
Yeah,
I would guess that.
Let him, Rob. Hang on. Let him, Rob.
I'd actually like to hear all three of you answer that. JP, Rob, and James. What do you think it will be?
Do I start?
Yeah, go for it, JP.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be like 85%. But like, please, let me say this really quick. Gianfranco, I know Gianfranco, and it's funny that you mentioned him.
Wait, 85% for Trump?
Huh?
85% for Trump?
For Kamala.
No, what do you think? What is the percentage you think is going to vote for Trump?
Really quick.
That's the question, though. I'm just telling you what the question is.
Shut up. Gianfranco, who just...
No, you shut the fuck up and answer the question, you stupid dweeb. Tell me how many black people are going to vote for fucking Trump. Shut up, retard, and answer the question, retard.
Answer winning hearts and minds here. Huh?
Yeah, I want this dumb retard to answer my question. Why can't you answer?
Repeat.
He said 85% against Trump is what he said.
Okay, against Trump. Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
I literally said that. If you can't listen, I'm sorry. But I wanted
you talk like a homo, bro. You're way too quiet.
Okay,
Raise your voice.
Andrew, shut up. That's why you're not.
No, you shut the fuck up, retard.
This is the kind of conversation that's going to get clipped up. That's why it's going to be spread online, and it's going to hurt.
Andrew, let me
stick to the arguments. Let's go.
You can carry on with your rant. There's two things that can simultaneously happen, and I think they're happening. I think you're underestimating your fellow conservatives. You can have a strategy to win, and at the same time, you can acquire the human capital. And in DC, they're making a tremendous effort. Different organizations here in Washington, like American Movement and CPI, etc., that are trying to get actual conservative folks moved to DC and influence our policy. But again, we cannot proceed with this very masochistic approach in which we sacrifice our campaign in defense of the issues that we care about. Please battle these issues the way that you're doing. We can have a conservative movement that is not directly tied with the campaign. The main mission of a campaign is winning an election. Their mission is not to influence our politics in the right direction, influence discourse. You do that. We do that. We can do that. You can right now talk very publicly about why gay marriage is wrong. Ben Shapiro can do it, and all these other figures can do it, and we should incentivize them to do so. Meanwhile, if you actually want to have an impact and not just like babble online, you should probably start thinking about how we get the right people in power. Meanwhile, we got to win, because Gianfranco, who just left a comment, he, like many Americans, is a gay American. I know this guy. He's gay and he wants to vote for Trump. If you ran on a platform that is against gay marriage, you wouldn't get him to vote. And you know what? At the end of the
no, that's terrible.
If you get the vote from those gay Americans and you get into power, that if you have the policy, if you have the personnel, then you can do whatever you want. But this
you can't. You can't. You end up pandering to the same constituency, bro. Like, what do you mean?
If I can answer Andrew's question real quick. So
right.
the
well,
actual
guys, I do have to go. It was nice chatting with all of you, especially Rob. It's good to see you again, man.
Yep, take it easy, man. I'll answer
Take care,
Andrew's
Andrew.
question,
Thanks
even
for
if he's
coming.
leaving real quick. Actually, black turnout's going to be down, it looks like, which is one of the reasons that Trump's looking better than he otherwise would. In places like Philadelphia, D.C., you see that black turnout's down. But I just want, Andrew's not here, so it's a little unfair to say this, but Andrew's also against the 19th Amendment and women voting, right? So let's take in context what Andrew's suggesting here. First, to answer his question directly, since he's still in here, I'll say this. Yeah, it looks like Trump's going to get, for Republicans, a historic number going back 30 years of black Americans that vote for him. So that percentage is going up. It's not a zero-sum game. For example, just because women will disproportionately vote for Kamala Harris than Donald Trump, as will blacks, you still need to get into those percentages to be able to win a national election. And so Trump's actually doing better with black Americans than he did in 2020, and certainly better than people like McCain and Romney did, and even Bush before him. He's also going to be doing better with Hispanics, and he'll probably be doing better with gay Americans than those people as well, though I'd have to get into the numbers to see that. But if we accept Andrew's worldview, right, that we need to be a puritanical party that says only people that meet certain puritanical metrics are welcome in our party, and we don't want anyone outside of that voting, we'll tell them you're just, this foul name or that, this degeneracy or that, we don't want to talk to you. What'll happen is, and we start with his not wanting women to vote, that ensures that as long as women are allowed to vote, which they are, that you will lose every single time. Over and over and over and over. And then Andrew could have his channel, which I like Andrew. I'm a good friend of Andrew, and he does very well on his channel, and that's great. He could have his channel, and he could get his views kicking and screaming, oh, we lost again. Oh, boy, if only we have more conservative values, we'll win. And he'll lose again and again and again. And that means that there'll be more indoctrination of his children. That means the border will be more open. That means that there'll be more crime. That means that there'll be more foreign wars. That means that inflation will soar. And all of the things outside of just that singular issue of gay marriage that he puts so much hyper focus on, all of those issues will get perpetually worse, to the point where he'll be censored and won't even be allowed to have these discussions online. All because he adapted this puritanical reasoning and hostility to